Hey everybody, John Pomeroy here, and welcome to Animator Reacts. We've got a super fun lineup today as we compare two brand new live-action remakes with their original animated versions. With the Moana live-action remake hitting the theaters, I wanted to start the video off by comparing it to its animated counterpart from 10 years ago. So let's take a look. Visually, it's stunning. It's got a beautiful look to it, but I'm a die-hard animation fan and been in the business for 50 plus years. And I just know that animation is a very, very unique universe. And the creations that are made for that universe fit much better there than they do when they're translated into live action. It's funny because these live action interpretations that they do, that Disney does, based on animated classics, something gets lost in the translation, I think, because when you take something that is really beloved and well known in the animation world and try to convert that to live action, something gets lost. Something about the appeal and the charm and the uniqueness of that particular animated moment, it just doesn't translate as well, I think. And I think it has a lot to do with the casting of the actors involved. And in animation, animators will take liberties and they'll create a universe that allows them to caricature the acting and probably profit more from some of the gags visually on the facial expressions and the gestures. That does not come across in the live action. Dwayne Johnson, is fantastic as the voice of Maui, but, when you watch his live action performance, it doesn't have the same the same character, the same comical punch that the animator had when he animated the CG version of the character of Maui. Funny, I'm looking at the rooster character. It's like that's the one thing that they carried over. They almost let him be almost identical, pulling over from the original animated version into the live action. They kept him pretty much intact, which works. His gags are funny, and he can be caricatured and he can be broad and goony. And it works. I don't know why they are compelled to make a live action version of a movie that was so revered and profitable for the studio as well. Makes me scratch my head a little bit. The original, I know the two guys that directed the first one, John Musker and Ron Clements, dear friends. They've done a lot of animated features. I got to work on one animated feature with them, Treasure Planet. It was a joy. And they are great storytellers. They have a great handle on what entertains and what's appealing and how to stage and just make it work in all their films, from Great Mouse Detective, Little Mermaid, on to, Moana. They're terrific to work with. The director that did this latest version comes from a background, I think, of Broadway musical shows. And that's great. But I think the emphasis is put more on the songs and display of the live action talent rather than the unique appeal that was presented in animation. Animation is a whole different world. It's a universe that it becomes like a parable or storytelling medium that is unique unto itself. When you try to take that idea and translate it into live action, for me, it suffers a little bit. Best of luck to them. I hope it does well. But that's my feeling on the subject, and I know I'm biased, but I'm a total admirer of the films that John Musker and Ron Clements have done in the past, so we'll see how it does. Before we compare the next animated film with its live-action counterpart, please consider subscribing. It really helps us grow and continue to bring new videos like this every week. Oh, it's a great scene. The style of the characters, I think, were heavily influenced by Chris Sanders, the director. He had a vision for the film, and I think that's really important when you're launching into an animated feature film. There's got to be an artist or a style that influences the layout, the props, as well as the character design. I think Chris did a great job here on being a strong influence. It's got its own autonomy and a unique fingerprint as opposed to other things that we've seen, like with Lion King, Pocahontas, Atlantis: The Lost Empire, Aladdin, and Treasure Planet. It's its own special look. And this particular style is so nice and simple. To me, being an animated nerd and junkie, I could see how it harkens back to early Disney shorts almost. because it's got a very simplistic form and it's not overly complicated with a lot of textures or, eye candy. It's very simple and you're able to focus very well, easily on the main character and the plot line.
Nani, Nani, Nani!
Okay.
Maybe you can do something you love.
So we're taking a look at the live action version. So right off the bat, it doesn't quite have the same appeal to me as animation. Of course, I'm biased, being an animator myself, but, I'm looking at surfing scenes, on the island, and continues to validate what I was saying earlier about the vision and the style of the picture of the original. This has kind of a generic feel to me. It doesn't have that unique quality, that was brought into being by Chris Sanders and his team. In the opening sequence here, I'm looking at, the live action version has a simplistic, live action approach to the staging. It doesn't compare at all to the look and the uniqueness and the appeal of the animated version. I'm looking at the animated scene here where they're sitting out there in the open, waiting for their waves on their surfboards. And it sparkles. It's got, to me, more life than the live action version does, simply because it generates a kind of appeal and innocence that I don't think is existing in the live action. Looking at the surfing scenes, the underwater scenes, I just really love what Chris has done and his team has done with the colors, the staging, the layout, and, making it a cineramic experience, with being out there in the ocean and surfing.
Great poem. You'll like it a lot. See?
Lilo.
Yeah, so this sequence is Stitch being introduced into his new home surroundings with Lilo and an older sister. The challenge here is trying to make this wild little critter seem appealing, even though he wants to get into everything. He's destructive, and he's having to learn, what it means to be part of this family. It's great animation. Having to animate, a struggle like that, while she's holding this wild little being, that's like generating his own energy. And then we stop.
Dad said Ohana means family.
Yeah, and there's the theme of the whole movie. It's about nobody gets left behind. We're family. He's got quite a variety of looks and movements here. I'm just going to capture a quick little picture here. This concept, this idea was brought about into being by Chris Sanders, who had a vision for this. And the executive command over Disney, I could see they must have seen the value in how this character could win hearts. He's kind of a fish out of water. And because of his own little survival instincts, he has now taken residence with this family that's regarding him as a pet at first. But then the relationship begins to get stronger. And I'm just taking this one little pose right here. He's got elements of a lot of different types of animals too. There's a part dog in him. There's a little bit of koala bear mixed in here too. And then whatever else came out of Chris's imagination. I love the arms that taper out. So you got the shoulder, and then you got the forearm that tapers out, and then it looks like a thumb and 3 digits with a claw at the end. The rear feet are like little nubs for toes, where the forearm is more like a hand. Fun stuff. It's a compact little form, little body, little feet, big ears that come up to the sides of the back of his head. His nose, his eye with that large highlight, a little bit of hair, wide mouth, tapering jaw, and a bite out of the ear. He's a rugged little critter. He doesn't mind getting into a scrap. I like this design. Fun character to draw. Now I'm looking at some of these model sheet sketches. I think these are probably Andreas's, because this was his character. And she's picking up a flower and attaching it to her hair. Very simple, lots of appeal, and he's got some nice little principles here with reversals going on in the body, drag, overlap, squash, and stretch, and all that. All the things that, we animators at Disney have been taught. But I mean, this little sketch right here where she is turning her head to the side as she puts her little orchid, this little flower in her hair, it's got a nice little simplicity to it. I see, it's interesting. Andreas is a real advocate and a real disciple of milk call, and I can see a little bit of milk call-isms in some of these poses. They are Andreas's, but we can't help but be influenced by some of the great animation superstars that we grew up with and were, our mentors and teachers. I just see a lot of lovely appeal in these drawings. We're going to be doing new videos like this every week, so subscribe and make sure you don't miss our latest uploads. All right, thanks so much for watching, everyone. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.